All right. Thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. Welcome to Lifelong Learning Partnership Badged Pathway Model for Adult Learners. I am Kerry Brown. I'm your IMS host for this session. I'm going to turn it over to our presenters momentarily, but just as an FYI, I'll be monitoring the chat, and I will also be, looking for questions. As you think of questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. Or at the end, you can also raise your hand and we'll take you off mute. But we will have time for Q&A at the end. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our presenters.
Thank you. Gail, do you want to? I'll introduce myself. I'm Claire Sullivan. I'm the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Innovation in Digital Badges and Micro-Credentials at the University of Maine System.
My name is Gail Sinise, and I'm the State Adult Education Director, and we're housed in the Maine Department of Education. So we're just going to get started. I hope you really have a sense of curiosity that brought you here today about a post-secondary and adult education partnership. Claire and I have been involved in this micro-credential partnership for over 2 years since the idea was first conceived, and it still catches me off guard. Adult education and the Maine University system. The societal and economic impacts that you can see on this slide of adults who are unprepared to enter post-secondary institutions and the workforce are not just Maine issues. If we could bring all adults just to the equivalency of a 6th grade reading level, it would generate over 2.2 trillion more dollars into our economy. So imagine the benefits to our society if we could create supportive pathways for these adults to earn micro-credentials, degrees, and gainful employment. I invite you to look at your own businesses and your own institutions and the economic needs of your state. If you do not have all of the human talent that you need, adult education may be that solution that's hiding in plain sight. There is so much potential that can be tapped in learners served by adult education and by our partnering with each other. So this main model was not just about developing micro-credentials, but developing credential pathways specifically for low income, corrections, immigrant, and Native American subpopulations. And the 3 with the arrows are the ones that we're going to be discussing today. The Native American pilot has not started yet. This main model is different from other projects that we've been involved with the university. This time, adult education was included as a full partner from the beginning. So when things were conceived, we were there to represent the voice of the subpopulations in creating this pathway for people who are not accessing or even prepared to access traditional pathways to post-secondary and many training programs. So when it comes to adult education, what comes to mind when you hear those words? Images of basket weaving, or maybe it's that place for high school dropouts, night school. But in Maine, the highest percentage of our learners are involved in workforce training programs. Our college transition programs prepares adult learners to enter or re-enter post-secondary without the need for developmental coursework. And they also earn college credits with us through articulation agreements. We are increasingly serving immigrants who already have college degrees and professional work experience from their home countries, but unfortunately cannot enter into meaningful employment due to their lack of English language proficiency. So we work a lot with that. So now I'm just going to let you see some of the contributions of each partner. So for adult education, this is just a thumbnail of all that we try to offer into the partnership. But I believe our being a trusted resource in local communities was really a big help in engaging learners in this effort. And we also lent our voice in their behalf to the program planning, which was really important to consider their needs. And now Claire will get a chance to share about the university system and its contributions.
Thank you, Gail. So one of the things that we're contributing for the University of Maine System is our expertise in micro-credentials. We've been developing micro-credentials for about 5 or 6 years now and developed the University of Maine System framework. I'll talk about that a little bit later in one of the next slides. Our goal is primarily to align this efforts to create a statewide micro-credential ecosystem. It's a very big goal, but we're chipping away at it. One of the nice things that we have right now going on, besides working with adult education, is our Maine Community College system has adopted the same framework and has adopted the same digital badging platform. So that alignment is quite a ways there and being established. We feel that being a trusted institution, a known institution in Maine with employers and with adult learners and others, that's important for the adult learner because they're feeling validated when they earn a University of Maine System micro-credential. So it's coming from us. We are standardizing or trying to standardize the academic credits that are attached to micro-credentials, and that's a big task that we're chipping away at once again. The academic credits for this one that we'll be talking about, computer support specialist, we're working on trying to align through the Maine Community College system as well as the University of Maine system where those credits will actually fit within IT degree programs. So a few things about how we're doing this alignment and trying to create this ecosystem. We're part of the All Learning Counts Lumina grant that was funded, and this is the work that's coming from that grant. We have worked with Credential Engine, both the Maine Community College System and University of Maine System is involved. We're working with the open badges. We're hopefully down the line, we'll create a comprehensive learner record. We're looking into that. We're also part of the Badge to Hire initiative through Education Design Lab, where we are implementing 21st century skills badges to our learners all over the state. Our main Spark goal is aligned to this work, which is trying to have us reach the 60% mark of adult learners earning a credential of value in the state. And then right now we're seeing, which is pretty exciting, micro-credentials, the terminologies, the language is being used in multiple places. So it's within our WIOA plan, it's within our Maine State strategic plan, and now our Maine State economic recovery plan. So this is it's the right timing to kind of do this alignment work we're finding. So I'm just going to briefly go over the framework that I mentioned. We have, so all our micro-credentials that we're building out in the University of Maine system and actually in the community college system and through this work with the All Learning Counts will have the same levels. So, and it'll be uniform how what the meaning behind those 3 levels. So our level 1 is foundational work. So what is needed to get that learner ready to do the more rigorous training at level 2. Level 2 is where that training occurs, whether it's in courses or modules, professional development boot camps. That is where the rigor is attached to that training and they're assessed. And then they move on to a level 3, which would be applying that training in a real world work setting. So we're always trying to get them to apply the learning, not just to stop with the training. You can also built into the model are we're calling them micro badges. So this is where industry recognized credentials can come into play, as well as the Education Design Lab badges or any other badges that we need to create to get people prepared and ready. So this can all be part of the career pathway that we're building out. So all 3 of those get stacked into our final macro badge, which represents that the micro-credential has been completed. And our thinking is we had to start somewhere. We started with computer support specialist, but we know that this is a lifelong learning endeavor. So we're creating now this proof of concept and the infrastructure behind it statewide so that we can then move that learner on to even higher level competencies, such as the cybersecurity or network security in this particular case. So that's our framework. Just how the computer support specialist, this is the one that we've targeted, and Gail will talk much more in depth about this. But the level 1 foundational work has academic rigor embedded within. So there has to be some reading, writing, math assessments, some college readiness, and English language proficiency. Then another piece of that is employability skills. So not just are they ready in some foundational work, but are they building those employability skills so when they do get that first job, they will be ready. And then in our level 1, we have digital literacy. So they must pass the exams for the IC3 digital literacy credential. And then that gets them ready. And Gail's going to go into some challenges we faced in completing that level 1 badge. And then level 2 is where the training comes with the CompTIA A+ course that they would take. Level 3 is that work-based experience. It can be even with a test out PC Pro exam, which gives about 6 months equivalency of work experience. Or what we're really working on is to create the partnerships with the employers. So it's a direct lead into an entry-level computer support specialist job. And now I'm going to turn it over to Gail to talk a little bit more about the pilots that we are conducting in the state around implementing the computer support specialist training.
So even though I don't like to bring up stereotypes, it might seem unusual that we would look at low income immigrants and incarcerated people for a technology, but it made perfect sense to us, because we know that people can achieve when they're given the right environment and the right types of supports. We also have jobs available in Maine for the computer support specialist positions. And adult education in our state has had prior IT training experience as part of tech hire. And we also wanted to make sure that we could have CompTIA A+, because it is an industry credential that's recognized as that entry point to other IT fields. So we thought it was just going to be a great fit. So we had 6 pilots that offered micro-credentials at different levels. So you can see that not everyone went beyond level 1. The Women's Reentry Center for the incarcerated group, they really needed to work on that level 1 digital literacy and employability skills, which also included helping the women have conversations with potential employers about their criminal backgrounds. There were 13 who initially enrolled in the level 1, 4 completed and earned the credential, and 3 are going on to participate in the level 2 with the CompTIA A+ offered by another pilot program. Offering this micro-credential opportunity online had its challenges at first, because you're working in an online environment in a correctional facility. That was worked through. And the best part is, when the pandemic hit, everything had to go online. They were able to do that. And also the 3 learners that they have will participate in level 2 at a program that's 3.5 hours away from them. So they would have never been able to access a nearby level 2 within the time frame of our pilot. So that's been really exciting. Lewiston Adult Education, down the bottom of your list, had level 1 was all they were going to do, but I'm going to talk more about that when I talk about some of our challenges. Portland Adult Education had 4 learners in level 1. Bucksport was a real success for us. It's really out in a kind of somewhat isolated area. They said we can do levels 1, 2, and 3. They were able to have an employer partner. Their local school district will take the successful completers and has jobs available for them. Bucksport had 7 people in their class. All 7 people completed level 1. All 7 are going on to level 2, and they're going to take in the 3 women from the reentry center, 1 from the Portland Adult Education Program, and one of our teachers from the reentry center. He did digital literacy. He got so excited about the experience of working with adult learners that he wants to earn the CompTIA A+ credential himself, and then he can teach for us. And that's exciting because we have found we need to grow our own teachers. That's been another challenge. The Ellsworth Adult Education Program also is offering all 3 levels to a low-income population. They had 5 enroll in level 1. It's not quite finished, but they expect 3 or 4 of the 5 to continue on to level 2. They have a teacher, and they also have an employer lined up. Spruce Mountain Adult Education also with all 3 levels, and they had to put their program on hold. That was a challenge. They had an employer who was going to be the actual teacher and provide the workplace, but due to the effects of the pandemic, he had to put those plans on hold and focus on keeping his business going. So those were the pilots. And now we'll talk a bit just about the challenges that we faced. So this could be seen as challenges that may come along with just any program that's being developed, but having the pilot start at the same time as the pandemic caused some extra wrinkles that we had to deal with. But I believe that our partnership working with the university system helped us to find solutions. No one was responsible for doing everything all by themselves. So that was another benefit of our partnership. And I'm going to just hit on a couple of these. As I said, it was difficult to recruit instructors. It's finding people who are able and willing to teach, and also who have the skills to teach adults from the populations we're talking about. There needs to be an understanding of adult learners and the barriers that they face and how to keep them engaged and encouraged. Also, as Claire mentioned, with employer partners, that's a part of the program we need to build out. And I did want to mention PLA and credits. Those are a huge lure to adult learners. They want to be recognized for what they've done in the past. They want to know that they're earning credits and that's going to help them move more quickly to the next levels and their other goals. And the incarcerated, again, it worked out really well, but internet access is a challenge, and also finding an instructor who's comfortable not only with an adult population, but an incarcerated population. So we can talk now about some of the successes, though, that we had in meeting some of these challenges. So that'll be the next slide, yes. So Lewiston was one of the programs I mentioned, level 1, and they were going to use students from their English language learner group. They had 5 students, and with supports, all 5 earned the micro-credential. 3 of the class members had post-secondary degrees and had worked in IT in their countries of origin, but they were struggling with vocabulary, pronunciation, and understanding spoken English. And since communication skills are so important to customer service positions, the program decided to enroll all 5 learners in the National Retail Federation Customer Service Credential and provide additional instruction in English language. All 5 of those learners did earn their National Retail Credential, and it was an extra step. It wasn't something that the program had planned to do, but it was helpful because now these 5 learners have 2 industry recognized credentials, and they've had a lot more experience and exposure to spoken English. 2 of the 5 are now moving on to CompTIA A+, and the other 3 are going to continue with additional language instruction, and that has been contextualized for the IT field. So we're excited for them. We had to redo our intake form and our data collection and a lot of that work, and we relied on our university partner to handle the PLA and the credits for us. So what does it take to help adult learners succeed? I'd like to say probably the biggest thing is they need to have a partner or an agency that understands the struggles that they face, especially those in minority populations. And it takes a deep conviction. We, as the providers, have to believe that most people want to succeed. And with the right opportunities and the right supports, they can do it. So what have we learned so far? Well, from the adult education side, we learned, and I think both of us working together, that we have to anticipate the need for adaptations. They're going to arise, and that we're going to have to be flexible, and we're going to have to put in extra work. But we're committed to doing this. We're committed to creating a micro-credential ecosystem that meets learners where they are and makes it possible for them to move on and attain their goals. We also need to stay focused on the meeting learner needs and not those of the institution. How has the micro-credential strengthened pathways to employment and learning? For the reasons that you see listed, micro-credentials, I believe the best part of them is that they're aspirational. By their very structure, they keep participants engaged and moving forward. They're short term, they can see their progress. And so that's been a good thing for our learners who want to become employed. They want to be able to provide for their families. And then what are our next steps? Well, we need to bring our pilots back together. We've been checking in with them, but we need an opportunity for them to meet and talk about what they've experienced. We need to have that process for tracking participants and to institutionalize what we're doing. It's pretty much, it's Claire and I, and have been able to work together really well, but it has to go beyond this. It has to be something that can be replicated, and we need to form that advisory group of employers. We need to share our message, and it's encouraging to see all the work that's being done nationally in providing more access to post-secondary opportunities, including micro-credentials. However, we can't lose sight of the millions of adults who aren't prepared to enter into those programs and be able to succeed in them. And by working together, adult education and post-secondary institutions can really make a difference and change that. So where do we go from here? Well, I hope you'll contact your local adult education provider, because I can promise you, you'll be met with excitement and an eagerness to get going. And as I have joked with Claire, when the university reached out to our office to become involved in this venture, I went back into that little bit of insecurity and felt just like I had been invited to come and sit at the grown-up table. So it's been a great experience for us and for our learners. And I think we have some time for any questions. And certainly you can feel free to get in touch with us later on when you get back to your work.
All right, thank you so much, Gail. Thank you, Claire. As Gail indicated, we do have a few minutes for questions. Please feel free to either enter a question in the chat, or if you'd like to raise your hand, if you have your participants list open, I think you should be able, or yeah, essentially your list open there, you should be able to raise your hand. And I'll take you off mute if you'd like to ask it in person. I'll just keep scanning that list, but like I said as well, if you'd like, you may enter that in the chat as well, and I'll read that out. I know people are often shy right at the end of the session, so we'll give everybody a moment to gather their thoughts.
And we really went quickly, and these are our children. We could have kept you here for hours. But I hope what we were able to share is meaningful and will get you thinking.
Okay. Well, if there aren't any questions right now, As Gail indicated, you can always reach out afterwards. Oh, wait, we do have somebody starting to chime in. It says in an early slide, you mentioned the need to avoid remedial classes. Is this through targeting the gaps in the individual learner's experience?
Yes, what we have tried to do with our adult learners is to offer those classes that they may have gaps in, so that we can go over that instructional material, so that when they go into the post-secondary, they can go right into credit-bearing classwork, which kind of helps them feel they're making that progress.
This is Jeff from Michigan. For the main trio, have you looked at, or is this tied into some type of indexing system like a credential engine, or have you linked it to your workforce side through licensing or of anything of that nature, where those micro-credentials or badges can show employers in a quick reference how to do that statewide?
Gonna take that, Gail?
Sounds like yours, Claire. Well, about our platform for badging and how we're going to try to grow that.
Right, so we're involved in Credential Engine. On our committee, we have Department of Labor, State Workforce Board. We have Department of Corrections on our committee. So we're thinking about apprenticeships, pre-apprenticeships programs. So we're really trying to think about how the micro-credentials can be valuable. We can't state, we would love them to count as a credential of value towards the 60% goal, but if they don't fit that criteria, what's the next step for the learner to get to a credential of value? So that's why credits are so important, going towards moving the micro-credentials to degree programs. So we're working on all of that simultaneously. Thank you.
Okay, great. We're also involved with credential engine and trying to index all that stuff as well. So I was just hoping somebody else was a little farther down the stream.
Early days for a lot of folks. Sarah had a question, wanted to ask a little bit more about collaboration with corrections. Sarah, I'm going to take you off mute if you haven't just already taken yourself off mute. There you go.
Yes, and I'm very excited, to continue learning more. So I understand we have 3 minutes left, and this can be a complex subject. I've worked with corrections before, so I'm just wondering, kind of what was your strategy to align with, corrections? Did you work primarily with people that were coming out of corrections and soon to be, released, or kind of how did you strategize with corrections to make sure you were in alignment around the learning goals?
Well, Sarah, I'll have to just tell you, we infiltrated corrections, not with any of our learners, but the woman that we worked with in corrections now is an adult educator. She worked with local adult education programs. And so she saw adult education as a great partner. And also many of our correctional facilities do rely on adult education for basic skills instruction and their high school equivalency testing. So we had a little bit of an in.
Oh, that's
with
great.
someone who reached out to us.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the other thing was because of their way they're set up with the pilot, they worked with a local program to pay an instructor to go in. So that was another thing that we did. But we could follow up another time on corrections.
Yes, I'll definitely be following up with you and Claire. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We had a couple more questions. I think we've got time for 1 or 2 more here. One was, is this a pilot only, or will you be continuing the outreach effort?
We certainly hope to continue. We more than hope to continue. It would be awful just to end it right here with the pilots. So we just had a conversation right before this about how to make this work sustainable and what's actually needed to move this forward. But we're building that infrastructure. That's what we're really focusing on, to create that system and get the right people at the table to keep it sustained. Gail, do you have anything to add?
No, I think we're very excited about some next steps. But I was just looking at Luke's question, if I could just take a second and answer.
Please do.
Because I went really quickly and I apologize for that. But we did do some intake assessments. We wanted learners to have could have an evidence of a college credit that they had earned, or through an assessment that they could read college level text. The CompTIA is very rigorous. The community college teaches that over 2 semesters, and we had our adults doing it in 10 to 12 weeks, that whole certification program. So we did do some assessments, and what's working, having great teachers and people who are committed to helping them with non-academic supports as well. And that's another question we could do a whole another day on.
All right, I think we are at time. Thank you very much, everybody. The recording for this, if you wanted to pass it along to anyone or review it yourself, will be available via the portal, the attendee portal, probably within a couple hours, actually. It usually processes pretty quickly. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. And thank you again for joining us this afternoon. And thank you, Gail and Claire, for presenting all of this to us. It's wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Claire.